The label on the package is a crime scene. Imagine a fruit so potent, so biologically aggressive that regulatory bodies have effectively gagged it. It is a warty, bright green cucumber that refused to cooperate with modern medicine. In the scientific community, they call it Momordica carantia. But to the centenarians of Okinawa, it is simply Goya. This fruit contains a compound known as Polypeptide-P. Researchers don't whisper about it, they call it plant insulin. It doesn't just mimic the effect of life-saving drugs. It activates the exact same enzyme pathways targeted by billion-dollar pharmaceutical giants. Yet in the United States, if you dare to print the words "prevents disease" on a bottle of this extract, the FDA can seize it as an unapproved drug. The most researched traditional food on the planet is legally forbidden from telling you what it actually does. This isn't just about a vegetable. It's about who owns the narrative of your health. Welcome to the buried garden. In 1975, a vault door opened on the most ambitious longevity study ever attempted. Dr. Makoto Suzuki began documenting the lives of those who refused to die young. This wasn't folklore. It was decades of hard data. The findings were staggering. Okinawa maintains roughly 68 centenarians per 100,000 residents. That is triple the concentration found in the West. Heart disease, 3 times lower in men, 4 times lower in women. When researchers looked at the plates of these elders, the Goya was always there. It wasn't just food, it was a dual-purpose medicine. It is intensely, almost violently bitter. Across the globe, cultures have spent centuries learning how to tame this taste. They salt it, they blanch it, they pair it with fat and fire. This is not a flavor that survived by accident. It is a taste that civilizations fought to keep because they knew what it did for the blood. If you want to integrate this ancient wisdom, you must respect the process. Here is the protocol. First, do not eat the seeds. They contain compounds that can be toxic in high doses. Second, treat the bitterness as the medicine. Slicing it thin and salting the pieces for 10 minutes draws out the excess juices, making it palatable without destroying the polypeptide-P. Third, quick blanching or stir-frying keeps the enzyme-activating compounds intact. We live in an era where nature is regulated and synthetic solutions are marketed, but the data from 1975 hasn't changed. The Okinawan elders haven't changed. Only the labels have. Stay curious. Look past the warning signs. Because in the buried garden, the truth is usually the thing they aren't allowed to say. The label on the package is the first crime scene. Look closely at the Goya or Bitter Melon. To the Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, it is simply a staple of Okinawan cuisine. A warty green cucumber stir-fried with tofu and pork. They praise its heat-resistant vitamin C. They note how it fights summer fatigue, but they are only telling you half the story. In Okinawa, the centenarians do not treat this plant as a seasonal side dish. They eat it constantly. It is the steady heartbeat of the world's longest-lived population. Pull back the map. Watch the pins multiply across the globe. In India, they call it Karela. In the Philippines, Ampalaya. In the Caribbean, Sarasi. In China, Kugua. Half the world never forgot this plant. They have been preserving it, cooking it, and passing it down for generations. Yet Western agriculture looked at this buried garden and saw nothing but a weed. They didn't just ignore it. They regulated the information around it. Now step inside the laboratory. This is where the story becomes impossible to ignore. This is where the vault door opens. Bitter melon contains 3 specific compounds that act like a biological skeleton key for your metabolism. First, carantane, a mixture of steroidal saponins that mimics insulin. It reduces sugar production in the liver and tells your body to store energy correctly. Second, Polypeptide-P. Scientists literally named this plant insulin. When injected, it lowers blood glucose in humans just like the pharmaceutical version. Nature grew a needle-free alternative and we looked the other way. Third, the triterpenoids. In 2013, a landmark study published in PLOS broke the silence. Researchers found that these compounds activate a pathway called AMPK. Think of AMPK as the master switch for energy. It triggers GLUT4, the transporter that vacuum cleans sugar out of your blood and into your muscles. Here is the conflict. Metformin, the most prescribed diabetes drug on Earth, works by targeting this exact same AMPK pathway. Pharmaceutical giants spend billions of dollars trying to master a single molecular gate. And here is a vegetable from an Okinawan stir-fry doing the same job for pennies. When a plant starts touching the same billion-dollar pathways as the armory of big pharma, the regulatory system does not celebrate. It wakes up. It builds a wall of technical jargon and legal threats around the truth. If you want to reclaim this forbidden harvest, you need a protocol. Do not just look for supplements. Look for the whole fruit. In Okinawa, they slice it thin, salt it to remove the intense bitterness, and flash fry it to keep the enzymes alive. If you use the dried tea, steep it long. Let the plant insulin release. We are told that health is a mystery solved only by a prescription pad. But the centenarians of Okinawa suggest otherwise. They suggest that the secret to longevity wasn't discovered in a lab. It was simply never forgotten in the garden. The question is no longer why they eat it. The question is, why were you told not to? Look at the label on the package. It is the first crime scene. It tells you the weight, the price, and the origin, but it is legally forbidden from telling you what it actually does to your blood. Let's examine the evidence. 100 grams of raw bitter melon, a warty green cucumber that simply refuses to cooperate with the modern medical narrative. Inside this serving sits 88 milligrams of vitamin C. That is 140% of your daily value. It is packed with folate, zinc, and iron. This isn't a supplement. This is plate-sized nutrition. For decades, Okinawan centenarians ate this several times a week. To them, it wasn't a superfood, it was dinner. But the moment we ask why these people live so long, the conversation is policed. Because the clinical evidence creates a problem for the status quo. In 2011, a multi-center double-blind trial put Goya to the test. 129 diabetic patients. One group took Metformin, the gold standard. The other took bitter melon extract. The result? The 2,000 milligram plant group showed significant reductions in fructosamine. It worked. It wasn't better than the drug, but it was effective. And in a world of patented molecules, effective and natural is a dangerous combination. Fast forward to 2023. Researchers in Korea found that this plant suppresses glucagon levels just 30 minutes after you eat. It's what science calls a hypoglycemic effect. The Okinawans just call it plant insulin. Yet here is the reality check. The vault door is only halfway open. A 2023 meta-analysis in Frontiers in Nutrition concluded the effect cannot be determined. This is regulatory purgatory. Too much evidence to ignore, but not enough profit to authorize a formal claim. The Okinawan elders call Goya their penicillin. In the lab, it shows activity against staph and E. coli. In the garden, it is a miracle. In the pharmacy, it is a ghost. If you choose to step into this buried garden, follow the protocol. Start with whole food. If you use extracts, the studies suggest 500 to 2,000 milligrams daily. But listen closely. If you are already on blood sugar medication, these two will compete. They are both powerful. We are told to wait for a consensus that may never come. But the data is already on the USDA spreadsheet. The history is already written in the lives of the world's oldest people. The label is a crime scene. But the harvest is yours. The label on the package is the first crime scene. Look closely at a bottle of Goya extract. You'll find a disclaimer written in the dry language of lawyers claiming it isn't intended to cure anything. But in the laboratory, the data tells a different story. Scientists measure effectiveness in MICS, minimum inhibitory concentrations. In a petri dish, this warty Okinawan cucumber destroys pathogens at doses as low as 0.08 milligrams. It's effective, it's precise, yet a laboratory spark is not a fire. And the law is a fire extinguisher. We have entered the trapdoor of modern regulation. The FDA does not exist to promote the healing power of your garden. Their mission is a grid, a system of category. Since 1994, under the DSHEA Act, health information has been split into two worlds. In the first world, you can say a plant supports metabolism. That is legal. It is safe. It is a structure and function claim. In the second world, if you use the word diabetes, you have entered a minefield. To say a plant heals a disease requires a mountain of clinical proof that costs millions to build. Since 1990, the FDA has authorized only 12 health claims for food. 12 in over 30 years. The gatekeepers aren't scientists in white coats. They are attorneys parsing sentence structures. If you sell Goya as a vegetable, you're safe. If you sell it as a supplement to support glucose, you're legal as long as you include the mandatory disclaimer of insignificance. But the moment you claim it treats a condition, the system shuts the door. The plant hasn't changed. The Okinawan centenarians haven't changed. Only the sentence structure changed. We live in a world where the science keeps accumulating, the traditional wisdom keeps proving itself, and the label stays silent. Because in a $68 billion supplement market, silence is the only legal option. So how do you actually use this forbidden harvest? Here is the protocol. First, understand that Goya is not a magic pill. It is a metabolic signaling tool. If you are using the raw fruit, consistency is the variable that matters. Okinawan tradition suggests small daily amounts integrated into meals rather than massive sporadic doses. Second, look for plant insulin, the specific Polypeptide-P compounds. If you choose extracts, ensure they are standardized. Without standardization, you are just buying expensive water. Third, monitor the bridge. Because Goya mimics insulin, it can stack with existing medications. Never cross that bridge without a glucometer in your hand. The system categorizes. The plant heals. The choice to read between the lines is yours. The label on the package is the first crime scene. In the eyes of the law, a vegetable is allowed to be food or it is allowed to be medicine. It cannot be both. This is the legal trapdoor where nature's most potent tools go to die. Meet the Goya, a warty, defiant cucumber that refused to cooperate with the system. In the West, we look for a pill. In Okinawa, they look for a pan. For centuries, this bitter melon has been the cornerstone of the world's longest living population. They didn't ban Goya. They didn't suppress the science. They did something much quieter. They boxed it into silence with definitions. You see, a food cannot tell you what it does to a disease. The moment it claims to heal, it is legally reclassified as a drug. And drugs require $1 billion proof that a garden was never designed to provide. The label isn't lying to you. It's just not allowed to tell you the truth. Let's look at the evidence. The Okinawan centenarians didn't survive on supplements. They ate the whole fruit. They understood what modern science is, only now rediscovering plant insulin, a complex enzyme pathway that mimics the body's own sugar-regulating system. But before you go hunting for miracles, you need to know how to handle the truth. Here is the protocol. First, recognize the specimen. Look for firm, bright green skin. If it's yellowing, it's overripe. The bitterness has peaked and the potency has faded. Second, store it like evidence, not like a pantry staple. It keeps for 4 to 5 days in the cold, no more. Third, and most importantly, respect the chemistry. If you are on blood sugar medications, Goya is not a hobby. It is a biological force. It can cause additive effects with insulin, and the seeds contain vicine, which demands caution. Always consult your provider. Nature is not safe. It is powerful. Okinawa teaches us that a long life isn't found in a magic plant. It's found in a pattern. It's the Goya shampuru eaten for decades. It's the movement. It's the moai, your social safety net. It's the ikigai, your reason to wake up in the morning. The vault door is open, but you have to be willing to walk inside. Share this with someone who is tired of reading labels that say nothing. Subscribe to Buried Garden. Because the most important knowledge isn't hidden in the ground. It's buried in the fine print.